Hi everyone, this is OGV Energy Live from Aberdeen, brought to you in association with Crux Digital Transformation Consultants. Wherever you are in the world, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Eric Doyle and this is our Asset Integrity Edition. We are broadcasting across the metaverse and beyond to bring you the very latest news and insight from across the energy sector. And we do that by bringing OGV Energy magazine to life. We bring the people to you. If you're a regular viewer, and thanks, it's good to have you with us again. You'll know how the show works. If you are new to the show, each month we feature interviews and discussions with our partners from across the publication on a wide range of topics across the energy sector. And we try and update you on all the latest news and insight and opinions on a very specific topic. This month is all about asset integrity. And you have the chance to ask questions. This is an interactive show. It's not just talking heads. You can interact with all of our guests and we try and encourage that. So the lovely people at OGV Energy magazine give away every month a prize for the best comment or question of the day. They give away a free half-page editorial or advert in a forthcoming edition of the magazine that would fit with your product and services. So let's kick off today by asking you to say hello. It's good to know who's with us, who's watching the show. Tell us where you are in the world. Tell us who you work with. Tell us what you do. Do you work in the asset integrity space? That's what this show is all about. It's the energy community coming together. So today we're going to explore and unpack the very latest in the world of asset integrity. And we're going to be meeting some really special people at the leading edge of this space in our industry today. Coming up on the Industry Spotlight feature of the show, we have joining us today Ross McHardy, Chief Operating Officer at ICR Group, and Neil Allen, Asset Management Lead at Worley. We're then going to head to Austin, Texas for all the latest insights in our markets from Mark Adioson, Director of Offshore Energy Services at Westwood Global Energy Group. And then we're going to go, as if by magic, from Austin, Texas, straight to Abu Dhabi to check in with John Bright, Operations Director from Proserv, to hear some exciting news from Camp Proserv. So lots to cover, lots to get on with. Remember, tell us who you are, tell us where you work with. Remember, and drop in questions and comments to our guests along the way. Our first guest, our headline guest today, with more years than she would care for me to mention in the asset integrity space. She's been in asset integrity for a long part of her career. And although her latest role sees her take a more overarching industry perspective, I think if you really pushed her, you would find she's got a real soft spot for asset integrity issues. After a long career in this space, she started with the Net Zero Technology Centre, actually with the OGTC back in the day, as Asset Integrity Solution Centre Manager in 2016. Now the Chief Operations Officer at NZTC. Please welcome to the show, Rebecca Alison. Rebecca, good to have you with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Not quite sure we could say how long. I don't know, like this long career, that sounds a bit...
Yeah. You start getting into that territory when you look back in someone's history where you're like, veteran, extensive. Should I use these words? Is she really going to like these? But you've been in asset integrity for a considerable part of your career, right?
I have, yes, I have.
Absolutely. It is great to have you with us. Now, so the first time when I met you, I think was 2018, and I was trying to get some development funding for some subsea technology in the asset integrity space. You were the Asset Integrity Solution Centre Manager at the time. I think a hell of a lot has changed since we met in 2018. But in your time in asset integrity space, what's probably the biggest change or transformation that you've seen in your career in asset integrity?
It's quite an interesting question because asset integrity has, challenges, asset management, asset integrity, whatever label you want to put onto it. We've got the same old problem. The problems haven't changed over the years. In my early career, standing offshore on a platform, looking at some of the challenges they had around fabric maintenance to inspection, et cetera, those problems still remain. But I think how we're tackling them are slightly different.
Right.
And the realization that this is an important part of asset management. It's one of those pillars of operational excellence, if you want to call it,
right.
Is part of when you're managing and looking after an asset. So I think it's become more prominent in people's thoughts of what do we need to do? What are the challenges? How to overcome them? Right. Rather than this, it's a bunch of rusty pipes. What does it matter? So I think that's what's really changed in the industry, and we're actually now taking it as a serious problem. Whether that's because we're into some of the late life management issues, whether it's we've got a better understanding of the consequences. We've had some significant consequences of poor asset integrity or poor asset management over the years. So I think all of that's now changing. There's still a way to go. There's still a huge way to go in this.
Still a huge way to go, absolutely. So from the days when you were a safety and risk engineer, when you were looking after inspection teams and all of that, now Chief Operating Officer at NZTC, for those who have maybe been hiding under a rock for the last 10 years, could you just give us a wee reminder of what the NZTC's focus is today and what your role is as COO?
So our focus today, and it's always been our focus, it's just maybe the areas have changed. So our focus, and predominantly what we're here is to help co-fund and invest in technology to overcome technology challenges. So originally it was very much in the oil and gas space, looking at some of the day-to-day challenges, and now we're focused more on the energy transition. How do we get to net zero? How do we decarbonize some of the assets that we all work with or are familiar with? So that focus is still there in this terms of we're looking at accelerating, deploying technology, whether that's from grant funding, so we fund technology development along with our industry partners, but we also have an accelerator program. We're now in the sixth cohort, looking at how we can accelerate startup companies into the energy sector. So that's predominantly what we're doing and what we're focused on, and it's working alongside industry, which whatever that industry looks like, it could be traditional oil and gas type companies, it's the energy companies that are now coming into that mix, but also into the renewable space as well.
And I guess it's probably fair to say, probably an underestimation, that your role's changed quite a bit since you joined in with NZTC. You're now Chief Operating Officer. What does a typical day look like in your life? Is there a typical day?
There's not a typical day, and obviously NZTC is still quite a small company, so it is very much roll your sleeves up, get on with it. I think my day-to-day is very much still looking at what are the technologies coming through, what are the projects that need support, where do we work with our different startup companies, but also large companies. We work with large companies as well that are in the R&D space. So there's no 2 days that are the same. And obviously, working with some of the smaller companies comes along with it some different challenges, because they sometimes don't quite know where the route to market is. Working with the larger companies also have some different challenges, just on return on investment type discussions they have with some of the bigger organizations. I also work quite closely with academia. So again, delving into the space of what's coming out of academic research, which would be quite an interesting space to work in. It's been a long time since I've been at university. So sometimes having a chat with these guys is like, wow, this is amazing. And it does sometimes spark that inspiration to go, I maybe would like to go back and do some more studying.
Absolutely incredible. As you said, you co-invest and collaborate with industries, governments to develop and deploy 2 technologies, and some of the numbers are quite incredible. 2,170 plus technologies screened, 175 plus field trials completed and planned are underway, 35 technologies commercialized, and 57 startups accelerated. I mean, it's when I first came across the old acronym, it was a lot of clever people that had come together and had a bit of an idea. But it was almost like in the startup days of OGTC back then, you were kind of feeling your way about what this was all about. Now NZTC is so fixed and firm on what the objective is and what it's all about. Has any of that spirit from the initial excitement, has it evolved and changed since you've been there?
I would say no, in terms of the spirit, the passion, our values have never changed. We're independent, we're inclusive, we're inquisitive. We have our core, and everybody who works here always has that sort of built into them. It's this passion of saying, what can we do to change the way we manage things? And doesn't necessarily mean asset integrity, but how does technology play the role in getting us to net zero, helping the energy transition, but also just working with all the different partners and people that we come across. I mean, that is the day job for us, is just speaking to those ideas out there. Some of them are crazy and wacky, and we never get there. And other ones you go, with a little bit of coaching and tweaking, maybe there is something there. So that is the bit that we all enjoy in here, is just having that horizon scanning just to see what's out there, because it is honestly a fantastic space.
Yeah, absolutely.
The community is huge.
Huge, absolutely huge. Now, of course, as the COO, you can't show any favor for particular technology, but there must be things that stop you in your tracks. What over the last couple of years, in terms of new technology development has kind of stopped you and made you go, wow, that's incredible?
There's obviously, from my background, asset integrity. The one that we kind of sat up and looked at was part of our open innovation program in 2022 was the digital paint.
Right.
Being developed by Copsis, a paint that can actually speak to you and tell you what's going on. That to me is something, and you think, wow, where does this concept come from? It's embedded sensors. It's very clever what it's doing. It's not going to literally speak to you because somebody says, oh, what does it whisper something? But being able to tell you that there's problems happening before you can actually see them is something that's great. That type of technology. But even in our early days, looking at some of the more simpler technologies, some of the drone technology we've supported, drones have been around for a long time, but then somebody comes with a different concept, a different use case to think about it, you go, oh, that could be interesting. And even some of the subsurface type projects, and now moving into the clean tech, looking at the alternatives to renewables, whether it's alternative fuels, some of the alternative fuels projects that we're working on have got fantastic opportunities. And again, in the hydrogen space, some of the electrolysis projects coming through, again, all look great. And I think that's what it is. When you look at the amount of technologies we've screened, but the amount we've funded, every single one of those ones we funded, it's going to drive value. There's going to have an impact. Maybe they will not be successful because we know R&D comes with that risk of everything's going to be. So we don't always pick winners. We don't always pick projects that are going to be successful. We look at them to say, if we have the right support behind them, give them the best chance that we can.
Very good. You and your colleagues are at the forefront of some very exciting stuff, interesting technology, people development. What are the challenges that we're facing in terms of the integrity of our assets and the thinking about integrity of our assets, that the bumps in the road that we still need to iron out that are just repeating all the time? What are the challenges?
So I think we always talk about, but if we could put asset integrity at the forefront, if we can do it through the CapEx stage, I don't think that's the answer because we've tried that and it's never quite got there. So I think we need to look at it from a different way. I think we need to look at it from, rather than trying to solve all of the asset integrity problems or all the asset management problems in one, look at specific high risk areas and understand some of the challenges, especially with late life management, life extension, and sometimes actually you just need to bite the bullet and maybe actually replace rather than repair. Again, sometimes we're always at that stage of, well, if we inspect more, we inspect more, inspect more. But if you actually do a run to failure type approach, it may have to be considered. So I think it's like taking a different approach to it. And I also have to say, I really try and adopt this whole piece on low cost, wide range sensors. The more we can have automation, the better we'll be able to manage our assets in a low cost environment. Inspection's one thing, but we have to be able to help reduce some of the costs as well.
Fair bit of nodding going on in our lounge over on the left-hand side of our screen with our other guests. Thanks for that. We have some uncertainty, some pockets of uncertainty in front of us, economic, political, fiscal, whatever it might be. How do you see that uncertainty? I mean, when I first went offshore in 1990, it was a very attractive place to work for a young person to go and move into. I was kind of desperate to get into oil and gas, and have been desperate to get into and worked in alternatives and renewables and all of that. And it's all been very, very exciting. How do you see the uncertainties affecting and impacting young talent coming into our industries where we need them?
I think there's a messaging thing there. And again, this is something that when the energy transition started and we started looking, we saw the industry pivoting. I did have some of the young career people come in and saying, oh, I'm not going to have a job. Where's asset integrity going to be? But actually, we're engineers. Engineers will always have a place in this planet, because we have the ability to solve problems, and it's actually an exciting place to work, regardless if you want to be on an offshore asset, whether you want to be working in data science, any of that type of approach, we all still need those skills. So there's an opportunity to work in the energy sector. And yes, it's part of that clean tech. We're here to solve the world's problems. Ultimately, that's what us as engineers will end up having, or hopefully solve the world's problems on climate change. So why wouldn't you want to work in that industry?
There you go. You heard it here first, folks. Why wouldn't you want to work in that industry? Absolutely. When when it comes to a subject very close to my heart is the digital transformation and evolution. I don't know if we can still say transformation, but the digital evolution of what we thought was our businesses and what our businesses are now, processes, tech, all of that. What impact do you see digital technology having in asset integrity and across the wider industry? Are we at the start of it? Are we in the middle of it? Or are we yet to see what's to come?
Interesting topic. I was at an event on Tuesday where we were speaking about digital solutions and transformation, and I think we are back at the beginning.
Oh,
the reason being, I think we started as a sector 10 years ago going, right, with digital transformation, but we didn't know what we wanted to do with it.
yep.
And I think it's only over the last few years we've now fully understood how digital can play a huge part in the way we manage asset integrity in the future. So that's why I'm saying we're back at the beginning. And again, I actually covered this topic. I think we need to simplify it, if that makes sense. As end users, I don't care how my iPhone works. I don't care how my car parks itself, but it's great technology and it helps me every day. You know, I can't live without my iPhone. I can't really park my car without the sensors, but I don't know how it actually works. So that's what I think we need. We need to have work alongside the digital community to say, if you simplify it for us, not in a layman's term, but just say, this is what I'm going to do. This is why this is going to be beneficial to how you do your day job. I think we'll get more buy-in into it.
Very good, very good. I asked this to all of our headline guests, and it's incredible what the sort of range of answers is. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but it's just interesting for us to hear. What does energy transition really mean for you and NZTC?
For us, it's that balance. We have to keep our energy security. We know that there's a challenge. We are not going to switch off the use of fossil fuels anytime soon because of the demand. So it's an educational piece on how does the energy transition look for every single person, and whether that's from using less, managing energy demand slightly differently, but also looking at how we can attract investment and the technology. Obviously we come from the technology lens, but how does technology play a role in that energy transition? But ultimately we have no choice, we've got to do it. We all know that, we all agree to it. So rather than saying we're one sector trying to do this, we need to all work together as a community. This is the best time, and if you use the word collaboration or community of practice, but the whole world community needs to stand together and actually start looking at how energy transition is and how every single person, regardless if you're an engineer or an end user or embarking on a career, we all have to think about what that means for us and how we're going to make a difference.
Now, you and I have heard for many years that word collaboration. It's been thrown around, bandied around for a long time. Academia, supply chain, service companies, operators, owners, facilities managers, the whole lot. It's all about collaboration. Are we at the point where the collaboration is any better than it's been? And are we close to getting that level of collaboration that we really need?
I would say we're at the best place we've ever been, and certainly from where we are seeing it from some of the work that we are doing we've got 3 or 4 big industry collaboration activities going ahead now, whether that's in the clean techs with some of our work around our energy hubs and our hydrogen backbone link, great consortium and collaboration in there. Also some of our traditional around the wells community, and even some of the asset integrity piece. So there's more and more cross-learning, sharing than there's ever been. But as always, there's always more to be done. I think it's just keeping the momentum going and actually, everybody understanding that we're not here to be, it's always been down to this commercial sensitivity, but actually if you share, you do help competitive and commercial acumen in there as well.
What would your advice be to anyone who's sitting there who maybe hasn't realised that NZTC is the route to all of this? You're sitting there, you're a company maybe established or maybe new, and you think you've got something, you think you've got an idea. What should that company do? How do they engage with you? What's the best route to sitting down and engaging with NZTC on ideas and topics and all of that?
They can reach out to us in a number of ways. Obviously, we have still have some funding left available potentially. We've got our cohort, our accelerator program. We're also here just to have a bit of a chat to give anybody any pointers. There are lots of other funding organisations out there. But the one thing I would also say to people when they're sitting there thinking they've got a great dial, think about what the business looks like, because we do see a lot of technologies that come in and you say, and how is this going to, what's the benefit? What's the value? And the first thing they jump into is the technical solutions, but sometimes you need to just look at it in the wider piece as well. Are you actually solving a problem? Are you actually moving the dial for what's existing there? And actually, is it a viable option going forward?
Very good, very good. Listen, I'm going to let you go because I know you've got a packed diary and I know you've got a town hall coming up. It's been a pleasure to have you with us today. In closing, thinking where you've been throughout your career and where you're sitting right now, what are your hopes for the next 10, 20, 30 years for the energy sector? What do you hope to see happen?
I hope that the energy sector is seen as not as the bad guys anymore. I mean, we're going through a very tough time. Everybody wants to shut us down or whatever, you know. So I think we hopefully will have a place at the table to say that we're actually part of, you know, the worldwide community of supplying the energy needs for the population we have. So, and I think Aberdeen will be at the heart of that. So yeah, I think it's that's where I would like to be, seen as being one of the champions and the problem solvers of the energy demands, rather than seen as the bad guys at the moment.
Well, that's a beautiful place to finish that. I'll let you go and enjoy your day. Thank you so much for taking some time to spend with us today. All the best to you and what you're doing. And we will see you again. Ta-ta.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Rebecca. Bye-bye. I don't know if we've got a problem with our chat. I can see that we've got quite a lot of viewers today. The lovely Mark Cowison has come in and said hello from LHR Marine, global specialists in marine equipment and supply products. Hello, Mark. If you are out there, could you just do a little test for me and even just type hello into our chat just to make sure that it's working? In the meantime, I'm going to bash on with our industry spotlight section today. So this is the part of the part of the show where we bring in companies that are active in the space that we're talking about. Let me introduce to you Ross McHardy, Chief Operating Officer at ICR. Hello, how are you doing, Ross?
Good afternoon, Eric. I'm very well, thank you.
It is good to see you. Really good to see you. And I'm also going to bring on Neil Allen. Let's bring on Neil. How are you doing, Neil?
I'm good, thanks, Eric. How are you?
Brilliant. Thank you. Any thoughts, observations, counter commentary, whatever it might be to what Rebecca was just talking about there? Any similarities or challenges to that?
I think quite a lot, actually. It was interesting. It's just closing out on talking about commerciality. I think I'm using a word that maybe she didn't, but you know, a lot of those innovations come into the market, and if you can't commercialize them, then they're not going to go anywhere. So I think that's an important point.
Absolutely. Neil, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I like her point on the collaboration. You know, I think we've all had views that sometimes we're not very good in the industry at collaborating together, and how the view of the technology centre is that we've got to, and that it is happening in order for the whole industry to reach its goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for that. A reminder, so the chat isn't broken. We've got some people coming in. If you've got any questions for Neil or Ross throughout this time that we have together, please come in and add them. I'm going to come to you first, Neil, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So hold on a minute. I'm always told by the guys at OGV I need to get my proper place in life at the bottom of the pile. So there you go. You guys are at the top of the tree where you should be. Neil, this month's magazine, Asset Integrity, the OGV Energy magazine, has got your colleague, Dr. Kirsten Oliver, on the front, and a lovely article that explains how you approach at Worley asset integrity. Interesting for me in our little chats. For those who don't know, some of this is planned. This isn't completely off the cuff. You said to me something quite interesting. Maybe some people don't realize that we are a traditional consultancy.
Yeah. The asset solutions section of Worley that I work in, or I suppose for those who don't know Worley, we're a global engineering company, with about 50,000 people across around about 50 countries in the world. I'm forever finding new Worley offices and meeting new people that you didn't know existed. Yeah. But I work within the sort of asset solutions team within Worley here in the UK, and we are more of a traditional consultancy arm rather than the big engineering sort of view that people think Worley is.
Right.
So we sort of specialize in asset integrity, the reliability space, and I suppose the asset optimization of the concept sort of feeds and the initial front end studies, more so than that, but again within the operational sort of asset integrity space as well.
The article in this month's magazine, the Worley piece, talked about your sort of three-phased approach. You talk about project framing, detailed evaluation, and implementation. Just run us through how that works on a typical project.
Yeah, and a typical project, well, it even starts sort of before the award of a typical project in asset integrity. We believe that, there's some cases, the industry as a whole will put out a project and it will just be, this is what we want X or Y done. But actually, what we do with the first stage where we frame it, we'll sit and talk to our customers, and we'll actually go, do you actually need what you've written here? Will this give you the best bang for the buck? Will this actually get your end goal?
Right.
In some cases, yes, it does. And, then it moves forward through the next phases. But in a lot of the cases, when you actually get down to the nitty gritty, you can be vastly more cost effective and efficient by actually finding out what the key issues are. So by finding out those key issues, you can then, as I say, move to the next phase where, we evaluate everything. We look at what's actually needed, but we take into consideration things like, what's the life of the field? What's the cost constraints? What's the OPEX? What's the CapEx? We take everything into consideration where we basically evaluate, and then, as I say, from those discussions, then lead on to us actually doing and working with our customers. So, to get to the end goal, we're a firm believer in it's a bit cliche, but a one team approach. Especially in asset integrity. I'm a big believer that you can't do asset integrity in silo. You've got to work with, the operators or the other inspection companies or whoever it is to get to the end goal. So then we'll implement all the projects and we'll do everything from then on. So I suppose that's in a quick nutshell around the sort of phases that we like to do. Ideally we run that through, but we still do the traditional sort of consultancy model where we'll, write tenders, send them in, win the work, and carry them out as best we can.
Very good, very good. Neil, we'll come back to you in a second. I'm going to go to Ross now. We'll just go backwards and forwards if that's okay. Ross, for anybody who's been under a rock for the last 10 years who doesn't know what ICR is all about, can you tell us a wee bit about ICR and how you operate in the asset integrity space and where your main areas of focus are?
Okay, yeah, of course, can. So ICR, a specialist services company within the asset integrity space. What does that mean? A load of words. So we've got 5 main product lines, businesses, if you like, that sit under the umbrella. We're probably best known for our composites technology. It's something we do internationally, very established, been around since about 1992, known as Technorap or Walker Tech if you go way back. Really established, and we do a lot of work there across anywhere where there's oil and gas globally, really. I've got the second business would be Quick Flange, which is a cold work mechanical connection business. Again, it's very well established, great product and global. We've got a drones business, so we do a lot of drones-based inspection. Again, that's fairly international and not just oil and gas, but into a lot of other sectors as well. We have then corrosion monitoring and chemical injection business, CIU or NECE, often known as in the brand names. And again, working with an awful lot of people probably on the call today.
Yep.
And then finally, what have I not mentioned? The fifth one would be machining and leak sealing. So we do some pretty high-end machining work on things like submarines and BAE and things. So 5 core businesses that we believe go through sort of the life cycle of asset integrity. Usually there's been corrosion of some event, and we're in there fixing it, essentially, keeping plants operational.
Very good, very good. And in terms of your sort of strategic focus as a business and geographic kind of spread, what is your sort of view on that? Where is your main areas of focus just now?
Yeah, so the main focus is on internationalization. So we want to maintain the sort of level of business that we have in the UK, both oil and gas and other sectors, continue to diversify, but largely maintain that sort of revenue level, because obviously there's a lot of uncertainty. Offshore North Sea oil and gas is going to decline over the coming 5 years, and we're seeing a bit of that now. So a lot of international growth. We're private equity backed, so there's an expectation of us to be growing, and we're doing 20% year-on-year type growth. So keep pushing that internationally, and not just oil and gas, multiple sectors, and taking what we've got really good products elsewhere.
Very good. Neil, coming back to you, we spoke about the three-phased approach, but then you broke it down even more in the magazine. I think it was yourself and your colleague that wrote the article. Alessandro,
he's vastly more attractive than me. That's why his photos in the magazine.
And he's got such a cooler name than you.
Yeah. Alessandro Legrot is a vastly better name than mine.
3 things you spoke about that caught my attention: inspection and maintenance rationalization. What does that mean?
Basically, what we found through the years is that inspection and maintenance rationalization, a lot of our customers have been really good at doing inspection and then maintenance, and they just continue doing it there on out. And as you know, the life's coming towards an end of a field, they've still got all these inspections being carried out, based on RBI, or in some cases fixed frequency sort of inspections. So we believe that like a lot of cases, and this includes like the anomaly management and not just general planned inspection, but there's countless customers I've dealt with in my career that have got in some cases thousands of open anomalies. And the fields are coming towards the end of their life in some cases, or, they're maybe looking to repurpose or come up with changes to the asset that maybe you can look at everything and actually make it vastly more efficient by going, well, actually, these have been open for 10 years. There's very little further degradation. So yeah, maybe we don't need to do them again. Let's take them out, And it even goes to the stage from the maintenance side, everyone's really good, at having big CMMS softwares with all these work orders sitting, and they all come through. But again, have they been maintained properly? Do they need just a general tidy up and a clean? Does that need to be? Can you look at that? Can you be more efficient? Can you literally, cut down what's not needed? Only do what's meant to be done. That's definitely the best approach that we see it, and we see it globally. It's not just a UK thing. This is every single sector that Worley work in, be it traditional oil and gas or even the new energy space as well, are learning bad techniques, I suppose, from us, and in every region as well. This happens. This is Middle East clients as well are the same.
Okay, thanks for that. Ross, you've been about this space for a while. You've been in the industry for a while. You and I both, well, you've actually got hair. I was going to say we've both got a bit of salt and pepper in our hair, but you've actually got hair. What is noticeable that you and ICR and the team there see changing? What is changing in asset integrity? What's the sort of thrust of change?
Yeah, I think Rebecca kind of touched on this as well. In terms of asset integrity, the basis of it is still the same. It's corroding stuff. But what's changing massively, and it touches on Neil's talking about as well, is data and how we manage it and try and be more specific with what we're doing rather than, wading through treacle, as I think Neil was describing there.
Yeah, pretty much.
As that from, as an ex-asset manager and trying to understand where you had risk, how to deal with it, try to put things in place to ensure you didn't shut down, etc., is really difficult. But if you've got a way to see into that data differently, then you can find the right solution. And again, touching on what's been said already, but that's what we want to be able to do, provide solutions to problems rather than just answer a very, very defined question. Again, Neil was talking about that. So data can help us massively. That's probably the main difference. But corrosion is what it is, Rust Never Sleeps, I think, was a Neil Young album. Is it? You'll know that, Eric. But
I had an inspector once back in the day that used to have that on his email signature.
Rust never sleeps.
Rust never sleeps, yeah.
That's the quote of the day. The quote of the day. Rust never sleeps.
Good thing to base your business on, of course.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So defect registers that are actually active and being paid attention to and being streamlined and actually being worked upon is a strong message there. Ross, Rebecca talked about clearly NZTC's mission is about innovation and technology and bringing it to markets. What is your view on the amount of focus that you guys put at ICR on innovation, technology, and all of that?
Yeah, so we have to. We're probably a little bit big to get too much funding from NZTC.
Maybe.
So we've got to do it ourselves. But it's fundamental. We've got, we believe, world-leading products across the business lines. But to keep them there, we have to invest in them. So we're continuing to do stuff, also harnessing digitization and trying to make our products more and more environmentally sustainable.
Right.
They are already, and they can help cut carbon emissions in the type of work that we do. But we're trying to develop those further. So new techniques for scanning pipeline wraps, for example, or pipework wraps in Sono. I think Ewan Robertson did an article for you in the magazine last month, with a bit of a spotlight on Technorapin and Sono, and that's something we've brought that can help extend the life of a repair, because they don't generally fail, our wraps. We've got very high quality engineered ones, but to prove that to the regulators, etc., you need to have inspection technology. So we've spent a lot of money and time developing in Sono, and we're just harnessing that now and taking it into the market, being very well received. And we're doing things across other bits. So intelligent side stream skids is something we're developing, so that rather than the sort of traditional corrosion coupons and a long time to base your analysis on, you can get that data much, much quicker through, all the new technology that's available to monitor it, but taking it as a side stream rather than into the flow. And various other bits as well, new products within Technorap, new mechanical connectors that we're working on as well. So quite a lot. It's difficult to find the time and money to invest in all that at the same time as, growing a business. But that's what we're here to do.
Do you need the academia link? I'll put that question to both of you. Is that something that you're both tuned into? Ross first, maybe, academia?
Yeah, so we have it. We do quite a lot, particularly with Robert Gordon's in Aberdeen. We have the knowledge transfer partnerships that we use to try and help us with that. And, so tapping into academia and hopefully giving a wee bit back as well.
Very good. Academia, something that's important for yourself and Worley?
It's something important to Worley. Yeah, again, you can imagine the machine that is Worley.
Yes.
There's different departments that look at, like, the customer service, customer solutions team, who deal with, like, the whole digital aspect. They work a lot more closely with global institutions, where they try and work together, and bring new technologies that us at Worley feel are required for the industry.
Neil, I had a question for you from the article on life extension and asset repurposing. What's the real truth? What's the real talk around asset extension and repurposing? We hear a lot about circular economies, repurposing, blah, 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 all of that. What's real life?
Well, real life it's actually true to life. That I would say the majority of my team and the wider a lot of the UK Worley business is all around projects where we're looking to extend life, and in a lot of cases in the energy transition space and in the new energy space, can we repurpose?
Yeah.
Can we take existing traditional oil and gas assets or pipelines or whatever it is and make it for hydrogen? Can we look to put wind turbines on things? But from a life extension, a sort of traditional asset integrity element, that we're doing countless life extension scopes, and it's now a key area where I see that it's only going to get more and more and more and more. I think the days of all the operators all around the world putting in new platforms are coming to an end. It's about how can they make everything, continue on. Especially with, I suppose, Rebecca touched on it, but we're sort of, as an industry, looked a little bit down upon at the moment, where, if you were going to put in all these new platforms, it won't go down too well, reputationally. So I think now it's all about what can they do to keep things maintained, keep things safe. And that's the key thing, making sure everything's safe, but also achieve the end goals as, I suppose, platforms get worse and, the amount of traditional oil and gas coming out of the ground, diminishes, how they can keep going on.
Ross asked Rebecca a question which I'm fascinated by. It's kind of the core of what I am as an individual. The impact of digital means to help us not only in the asset integrity space but as a business. What sort of challenges or what perspectives do you have on this digital evolution? I mean, it's massive, right?
It is huge, and I don't think as a species of humans yet we can quite control it. I think it's almost controlling us. It's going so fast.
Yeah.
And you think back, 10 years ago, it hardly existed at all, and now we're running at 1 million miles an hour. I think there's fantastic things it can do, but we've got to be quite careful with it. Even in the asset integrity space, you could, the trend is to try and use the data to make very, very specific interventions on your inspection. But you get that wrong, and then you've got a problem. Yeah. So, we've got to be sensible with it. I think, the amount of stuff that it creates and generates, whether it be, advertising from people into your social media, emails, stuff that it's so generative that it's quite difficult to cope with some of the sheer volume of stuff that's coming. So I think we've got to be smart with it. But the technology has just come on so far that, there's some fantastic things in there. And, we need to work to have a proper plan that we harness rather than being left behind by it or overtaken by others who use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Neil, your thoughts on, you're 20 years in asset integrity, right?
Yeah.
So you were, completely digital when completely analog when you started, and probably just moved with digital means.
Well, yeah, I suppose not completely analog, but yeah, I've seen a lot of changes. a lot of changes, and I see a lot of changes coming as well. That that I can see now that the traditional sort of asset integrity software and tools that have been on the market for years and years and years haven't fully changed. Yeah, they look nicer, right? But most of them are still fundamentally hierarchy on one side, huge amount of data on the other side, and yes, they do loads and loads of different things. But what we get asked a lot of the times, and and in some cases, we're not necessarily here to flog a Worley software, but it's something that we use everybody's softwares. We like to say software agnostic. We use anybody's software, and what we're getting asked is, can we visualize it? The customers want to see visualization. They want to be able to see, right, okay, all that sheer amount of data on the right-hand side. Well, what does it actually mean?
Make a picture so we can understand
it. Picture. They want to see it. They want to see runs of pipelines, or they want to see, be it, laser scanning data. I think in the article we've touched on, one of our laser scanning departments, that sit within the asset integrity team, that go out, take laser scans, and then it's around how can you, visualize the anomalies at a glance. Can you overlay, RBI risks across that? Can you actually see trends of degradation that you go, actually, you've got your drawing and you've been following it through, and you go, well, that's the end. Oh, I've seen it on the drawing, but actually, if you can see it, you can see, well, actually, it goes through that deck and goes round the corner. It's actually a lot more widespread than you would possibly imagine. So
you see visualization.
Yeah,
breaking these teeth in visualization as becoming a bigger thing.
Definitely, I can see that. I suppose it ties in. A few years ago it was the digital twin thing. Which still kicks about. But again, I don't know. There's the full appetite for giant, all-encompassing digital twins anymore. I'm seeing more smaller, lightweight, specific digital twins. But I also see, utilizing the tech that's coming in, and we're maybe a little bit ways off there around the machine learning and the AI. Can you, and that throws in again within the robotics aspect. Can you have robots going around just taking scans and photos, and can there be machine learning and AI used to see, oh, well, that corrosion's gotten a lot worse than we last saw. Yeah. And we're a little ways off. I think we're further off that up and running than some companies will have you believe. But
it's changing, isn't it? So in the past, you needed human beings to do things, where now machines can do it in different ways. But the human beings have to be there to do different things now and interpret.
Completely agree, Ross. Yeah, you do need the human being at the end, the integrity engineer, or the engineering team actually looking and going, yep, I agree with what that AI said. You can't. I don't want to just focus exactly on what the tech says.
I think it's quite exciting that we're sitting here today in coming up to the end of March 2024, and the energy industry in 20 or 30 years' time is going to have job roles and job descriptions that we don't fully understand today. Yeah. Right? It's amazing, right? It's amazing that the pace of change, the speed of change. Thanks for that, Neil. Ross, I'm going to end with you. This industry's been good to us. The energy industry's been good to us. We're of a similar age. I'll ask you the same question that I asked Rebecca. What are your hopes for the energy industry moving forward? People, tech, whatever it might be, political scenarios. What are your hopes just as a human being that's been a professional in the sector for a while?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you say, it's been very good to me, and not just from a sort of a strong career and being able to do that, but the amount of things that got involved with over the years is just huge. And even now, I learn every day, and we'll be doing things because I'm lucky enough to be in a global business. Then you get into different cultures and different people as well. And I know that's slightly off topic, but we can be working everywhere from Indonesia in the morning to Middle East, and then this afternoon I'll probably be on a call to the States. So the worldwide nature of the energy industry has always been brilliant, and that's only going to increase. I mean, the world is struggling with internationalization just now in many ways, of particularly people moving around, and everybody's struggling to know how to deal with that. But the more and more that happens, the energy needs to be integrated across the globe, and it needs to be between different sectors. So nuclear, oil and gas, renewables, they're all related. I think Rebecca said it. We're all engineers, and there's ways to harness that. So it's an exciting space to be in. I think you see people stepping out of it and then wanting back because it's maybe not quite as glamorous elsewhere, or as interesting, let's say, maybe rather than glamorous. So yeah, I think it's still good. It'll be different. But change is okay. Just harness it and go with it and find the path.
Change is okay. Just harness it and go with it. We'll just bracket that and make that the headline piece for this section. Neil, it's been brilliant. If you liked what you heard from Neil Allen, Worley, you can find him LinkedIn, I guess. Connect with you and have the conversation. Ross McHardy, ICR. You can get in touch with Ross if you heard anything you like there. He'll put you in touch with members of the team, whatever. It's been a pleasure, gentlemen, to spend 20 minutes with you. I wish you both all the best, and thanks so much for giving up your time today.
Thanks for having us on.
Cheers. Thanks, Eric.
See you soon. Bye-bye. Wasn't that great? Hearing from two companies that are smack bang active in the space that we're talking about today. Thank you to Ross and to Neil. Remember, we have our competition going, the best comment or question of the day. I think people are just absorbing today, just absorbing all the lovely chat and comments. Now it's time for a bit of an update on our markets. We are going to go to our Market Watch section, and I'm going to bring back a friend of the show that's been on this show many times, Mark Adioson, Westwood Global Energy Group, and the official title, Director of Offshore Energy Services. It's good to have you here all the way from Austin, Texas. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks, Eric. Good to be back on the show.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. You've got a couple of slides for us that are market updates. Will I put them up? Yeah,
absolutely. Just wanted to borrow from what Neil was saying earlier. People like to see, so like to give some visual. Put some picture up to be able to contextualize the conversation overall.
Very good.
Yeah, let's go into the next slide. Wouldn't make it so boring, neither will I make it gloomy. So overall, I think what we've seen is that it's been a very, very slow start to the year when you compare that to 2023, when you're looking at FID counts, that's just literally in single digits year to date in comparison to almost 20 FIDs when you compare that to the same period in 2023. But overall, it's one thing and one thing alone at this point in time that is more or less causing the delays to these FIDs, and that is the supply chain inflationary pressures. So if we first of all look at some of the downside to that is when you compare subsea trees as a metric in measuring the market as well, it's a year-on-year decline, and you start to look at about 80% year-on-year in comparison to the same time period in 2023. But overall, one of the most important things also to borrow from what Neil was saying earlier is that operators are beginning to look at creative ways in moving projects forward. As you can see, we are still forecasting well over 60 FIDs in 2024, which is a growth on 2023. And that is because operators are beginning to look at project optimization more seriously, and operators are beginning to look at reusing existing infrastructure. So there'll be quite a number of subsea tieback using existing infrastructure that will be sanctioned this year, and we would also see quite a number of floating production systems that will stem from existing assets, more or less upgrading or redeploying existing FPSOs. I've just had a chart on the right-hand side of the screen there, more or less highlighting some of the major deep water projects that we're tracking for the first half of this year. So no surprises there at all when you're looking at activities in the Americas as well as West Africa. But a lot of those projects in West Africa are a little bit much more price sensitive, so they are prone to delays, especially when you're looking at Bonga North, as well as some of the Angolan project overall. If we just quickly go to the next slide, we want to look at it from an EPC contract award standpoint. So before I jump into that, just to talk a little bit more around the FPSOs. So right now, we currently are tracking 20 units to be sanctioned this year. And as you can see, out of those 20 units, 10 are expected to be new builds. This includes FLNG units. And you can see the section of upgrades there, 7 upgrades to be recorded this year or to be contracted this year. Which is more or less a trend that we've seen. So if you look at the 2022-2023 period, I think there were about 10 or 12 upgraded units that were sanctioned within that period, more or less piggyback from what Neil was saying earlier in terms of asset life extension or repurposing, but in this case, the reuse of all of these existing FPSOs. If you look at it from the EPC standpoint, we also expect to see a year-on-year growth when you're looking at 2024 EPC contract award value. So outside those water projects, outside those FPSOs, we definitely expect a lot of contracting activities offshore Brazil as well as Guyana this year. Putting into consideration that Petrobras actually did not sanction any FPSO last year because they had to go through retendering to be able to come to an agreement with contractors from a pricing standpoint, and also from a project financing standpoint as well. So give or take, we expect the Albacora redevelopment unit to be sanctioned this year. We expect the all-electric P84 and P85 units to also be sanctioned this year. So from the strapline, you can see there for FPSOs as well as FLNG units, we expect that to drive the proportion of EPC contract award value this year, which would account for almost 50% in that sense. But elsewhere around the world, you're looking at activities more or less in Asia as well as the Middle East. So despite the fact that Saudi Aramco more or less pulled back against the expansion project of 1 million barrels per day, hereby putting a pause on some of those offshore EPC tenders using its CRPOs, we still anticipate the likes of the North Field compression project as well as some of the subsea tieback in Israel to go forward. Whilst when you look at Asia, you're looking at ONGC more or less investing in some of those R series redevelopment and expansion, as well as the Block B development in Vietnam. Just to close off, I did already mention quite a number of times in terms of pricing pressure. I just wanted to give an illustration on the last slide on what that really means right now. So looking at this last slide, we are currently seeing a 15 to 20% inflationary pressures within the supply chain when you compare the awards that we've recorded in 2023 and 2024 in comparison to what it was in 2022. But you can also see that line chart showing the average subsea EPC spend per FID, and that has been growing post-COVID. And most importantly is how do we stem that growth, or how do we actually reverse that trend so that all of these FIDs will start to happen so that we can start to develop oil and gas fields in a much more cheaper and economically viable way.
Very good. Thank you so much for showing us what you showed us. I guess a question would be, one of the words that's been mentioned quite a lot today is uncertainties, right? Uncertainties, and you mentioned pressures. How do you actually see markets playing out? What's the pulse from our markets with these pressures and uncertainties? What's the word on the street?
I think the word on the street is more or less the uncertainty around the long-term viability of oil and gas within the energy mix. Obviously, We all know that we are in an energy transition, and as the word says, it's a transition, not a switch. And so having that understanding that oil and gas is still going to be in demand beyond the next 3-4 decades to come, albeit depending on the forecast you look at, the growth percentage would vary year on year up until the end of this decade. But the consensus is the demand will continue to grow, albeit slowly, until 2030 or post 2030, depending on some of those forecasts. And we need to continue to articulate that within the industry, within the supply chain, because right now, to be able to stem that level of inflation that we see, it's all about expansion, because we need a vibrant supply chain to be able to support the current demand within the oil and gas space. But at the same time, that supply chain would also be required for the energy transition. So albeit CCS, albeit hydrogen, albeit offshore wind, we need the supply chain to gain confidence in the future of the energy industry for them to start investing and attracting new talent as well into the space.
Thank you. How, in your view, you've been in the market analytics world for a long time. What are you seeing coming down the pipeline in terms of how we overcome these cost inflation challenges? Have you seen any behaviors or trends or methodologies?
I think the positive side of the current cost inflation, like I said, to bring this down is capacity and expansion on the supply chain standpoint, because you can actually see there is a little bit of disconnect when you're looking at oil prices and number of FIDs that have been sanctioned. Oil prices definitely traded above $80 per barrel in 2023. Or on average, I think it's traded at about $80 per barrel so far this year as well. So it's not a question of the commodity prices at this point in time. It's more or less the supply chain cost. But on the flip side, we are still seeing activities, especially in prolific basins, and operators are beginning to get more creative. Project optimization is one of those things I've actually heard of a lot in recent weeks and recent months, where operators are now looking to progress those projects, but in a much more efficient way. So the current challenge has actually improved the innovation within the industry, brought more technology into play, brought more plug and play scenarios into play. For example, the Sparta project was more or less a replica of the Whale project, of the Vito project, right in the Gulf of Mexico, albeit a few percentage changes here and there, especially when you're looking at heavy asset like the floating production system. So things like that are what operators are beginning to look at, operators are beginning to do, which is quite beneficial to the industry, both now and in the future.
Mark, thank you very much. If you liked what you heard from Mark, please reach out. His name and title, you can find him easily. He'll be in our notes, and he would love to extend that conversation with you if you need any more information and engage with him. Mark, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Enjoy the rest of your day in Austin, Texas. I would much rather be in Austin, Texas right now than where I am. But thank you for sharing your insight with us. It's always a pleasure. See you soon.
Thanks, Eric. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. We are coming towards the end of our show. We have one guest left, and we are going to, as if by magic, shoot across from Austin, Texas to Abu Dhabi and meet with John Bright from Proserv, Operations Director. How are you doing, John?
Good afternoon, Eric, and good evening.
And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Yeah,
Exactly.
Absolutely. Pretty interesting stuff coming up in the show. We started with Rebecca, went to Ross and Neil, and then some insight there from Mark. Anything you've heard today which is interesting you or harmonizes with your own thinking?
It's basically confirmed everything I've been hearing from the clients in the Middle East as well. And it's great to see, I don't mean this bad against anyone else, but the asset integrity people who have been in the industry and in that part of the industry for a long time still have that burning passion to continue to see how they can develop it even
make things
further.
better, make them more effective. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I said this to the guys earlier on. Proserv's a big chunky name in the industry. For anyone who doesn't know what Proserv's all about, can you just give us a wee reminder? And also, you're 31 years in the UAE, and what your area of responsibility as operations director?
Yeah, for sure. Proserv are one of the leaders in the subsea and topside controls. We specialize in the Middle East, mainly on the topside.
Right.
And with that, we're looking at developing not only for the project side, but also on developing, looking after the installed base that's already there. My background, this is now my 10th year with Proserv. And over that time, we've been developing discussions with clients in the region to see how we can help develop the service side on wellhead controls. It's one of those issues where certain products within the industry are overlooked to actually be looked after, and a control system is basically the heart of the well. So making sure that if anything does happen, it's shut down immediately. And my background in the 31 years I've been here has always been looking at manufacturers and taking what their installed base is and seeing how we can build a service business from that. And that could be, I've worked with wood, where we've done shutdowns on a lot of the onshore facilities. I've worked with companies in pumps, and the interesting one was gearboxes. Because gearbox, there's a great example of gearboxes cover all the energy mix. You've got gearboxes in wind farms, you've got gearboxes offshore, the turbines, everything. And speaking about how things have changed, when I first went with one of the senior guys who were the service engineer, his way of telling the reliability of a gearbox was literally just to put his hand on it and go by the vibration, the heat, listen to what's happening. And that was the monitor for the client back in those days. Now we've got so much technology, as everyone has said, Neil, Ross, and Rebecca. It's making sure that we use the right technology now for what's actually required and not overload it.
Not overload it. Fair point. We love a story about innovation and collaboration on this show. And we read in your article this month in OGV Energy's Asset Integrity magazine, co-written by yourself and your colleague, project manager Dua Ibrahim, the new asset intelligence solution. Can you tell us a wee bit about that and what was the driver for it?
Yeah, for sure. We have, over the past 10 years, we have been having conversations with the clients in the Middle East with regard to what do you actually need? Instead of going to them with a product and saying, this will solve all your problems. And then after a year, they come back and say, it's a waste of time, we've spent millions, go away. We've actually looked at the specific areas where we can be of benefit to the client, but most importantly, the guys on the ground, the operators. We've all spoken about the digital views and everything that HQs have where they can see everything that's going on. But when you ask the guys on the ground, they always say, well, it doesn't help me. I've still got to produce. I've still got to maintain the equipment and make sure that it's producing. So what we did is back in 2019, we were, and the word keeps cropping up, collaboration. We were looking at how we could continue to develop the relationships we had with the clients here. And one of those ways was to expand the offering, but also collaborate with other companies. So you're not doing it all yourself, you're actually working together as a team. And that's where we saw an opportunity with Dron and Dixon here in the Middle East to acquire them and add it on as a benefit for what we do as a company. And from that, we then went to the clients and had discussions. And, if you consider we're in the 2024, and if you think, I think it was mentioned earlier, 20 years ago, we were talking about digital. Customers are still taking care of all their inspections, all their daily reports manually. So somebody will go out, do a survey, inspect, they would do their daily report, they will then do the survey report, and everything will go through fine, but everything's manual, and you've got a piece of paper here, a piece of paper here, and you have to try and bring it together. What we did is actually spoke to the clients and said, okay, in a perfect world, what would be good for you? And when you actually look at it and break it down, it's actually a lot simpler than everyone is going on about. It's having a central space that can take that information, maintain it, and then prioritize what needs to be done. I think it was Neil earlier who actually said the number of clients that keep repeating the same inspection, the same maintenance for something that doesn't need it.
Yeah.
So it saves manpower. It also enables uptime to be able to be looked at back on shore. And it also allows people then, the next step after you've done all the surveys, to come out with a maintenance plan, but on the plan for the things that actually need it. So that's how we came about there.
My goodness. So in essence, asset intelligence, the new asset intelligence solution is deep knowledge, deep understanding to allow you to make better decisions and prioritize.
Absolutely.
Got it. Loud and clear. And this isn't conceptual. This isn't just a airy-fairy sort of like maybes. This is working today, right?
I mean, Dua Ibrahim has been working on this for a number of years, and you know, it has evolved because we've gone to the clients and said, is this what you require? What would be, and it's about being flexible and adaptable, and not only collaborating with other companies, but collaborating with the client. You know, we're a team, we're trying to solve the same problem. And also the good thing about Proserv is they let you collaborate internally.
Yeah.
So it's not we're all in silos and we take care of our own business. It's communication, because somebody may have that piece of the jigsaw which is going to make it work.
Very good. Very good. We spoke earlier throughout about this asset integrity clearly generates and requires data. Are we in a position where possibly some people are just collecting data for the sake of it because it feels good, because we've got all this data? Are we really getting, you know, I guess the reason why asset intelligence came about is because we've got so much data, but actually filtering through to find the diamonds and the gold in that data is important, right?
Yes, it's the needle in the haystack. Unfortunately, the haystack is very huge at the moment. But that's the beauty of asset intelligence, is that you are able to, when our people go offshore or into the field, they are able to scan a tag, get all the information on it and the drawings just on their EX tablet. And then they can literally make a decision there and then as to whether they need to do something immediately or put it down as a plan. And that straight away gets sent to the main cloud, where the client can actually go in and pick it out. I'll be very quick, but one incident that always comes to mind is when the operators get a call from their management and they turn around and say, I need this report and I need to know what our budget's going to be for next year, what we need to fix and how much we're going to produce. And that takes a hell of a lot of Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah.
With this asset intelligence, we've designed literally main boards where people can get all the information on one slide. And with that, it gives them the information which usually would take days to get a report to the management, which they would then have to read at some point. So you're losing days, weeks, months.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about becoming more efficient and more prioritized, and having that ability to make decisions from a position of being more informed, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. John, you've been in the industry for a fair old while. What are your thoughts on? There was a time when we were, sort of like, holding people off at the door trying to get into this industry. Is that the same situation now? And if not, how do we encourage young talent to come out of universities, colleges, schools, whatever it might be, to get into this energy industry?
Yeah, that's the problem at the moment. Rebecca highlighted it perfectly. We're seen as the bad guys in the world at the moment, destroying the planet, when in fact what we're trying to do is to turn that around.
Yeah.
You know, I know from the universities here in Abu Dhabi, they've had problems getting people in to study petroleum engineering, etc. And at the end of the day, the oil industry is not the same as it used to be. It's now got everything: data science, AI, all these things are the future. But more importantly, the young people have a great opportunity to get in, work in the industry that we're in at the moment, but also have a new industry as they transfer it into the transformation or energy mix that's required. Because a lot of the services we do today can be used in the new industry, in the renewable industry tomorrow.
Yeah, very much so. Hey, listen, it's been great to hear your journey with Asset Intelligence, and we wish you all of the best. In 31 years in the UAE, do you think you're going to stay? Do you think you're going to like it?
I'll give it a couple of more years and see if it's worth staying on.
John, always a pleasure to see you. Lovely to have you on the show. If you'd like to extend that conversation further, John Bright, Proserv, get in touch with him. Asset Intelligence or anything more about what Proserv are doing, he'd love to talk to you. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you. Thanks,
We
Eric.
will see you soon. Ta-ta. Bye-bye. Well, we have reached the end of our show. Let me just get that vision on there. There we are. Thank you so much to all of our guests today. Rebecca Alison, Ross McHardy, Neil Allen, Mark Adioson, and John Bright. Wonderful. Absolutely. All sharing their insight and knowledge with us. We are going to be back with you. Thank you so much for being with us today. I think we had a wee problem with our chat because it was a bit laggy today, but that's all right. We are going to see you all again on Thursday, the 25th of April, when we are coming back with our decommissioning show. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.